Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello everybody, welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom! This is a show where we wake up to the Saturday morning sun, popped on the floor, big bowl of sugary cereal, and we'll try your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And this morning, we watched Dungeons and Dragons.
You made the dragons sound cute.
I mean, it wasn't really accurate so much. It was more maybe some dungeons and like a dragon. So Dungeons and Dragon.
Kind of. I mean, that one dragon was like, I don't know, man. There's got to be another way to describe that. That's not a straight up dragon.
Well, it's like multiple dragons.
More like a hydra than anything.
One. Yeah, kind of a hydra.
But like, if you gotta say Dungeons and Dragons, it's got to be like Dungeons and Dragons.
No, I don't like it.
Something.
You gotta do dragons cute. Dragons.
Okay, hang on. Dungeons and Dragons.
There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So who suggested this one to us?
This was suggested by DoggyVision via something. I don't remember what. DoggyVision.
DoggyVision. Okay.
Thanks, DoggyVision.
Thanks, DoggyVision.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was YouTube. Yeah.
So the show Dungeons and Dragons aired from 1983 to 1985, developed by Kevin Paul Coates, Dennis Marks, and Takashi. No last name, so that's mysterious. It was produced by Marvel Productions, D&D Entertainment, and Toei Animation. Ran for 3 seasons, 27 episodes, with 1 left unproduced, which happened to be the last episode, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. And this was on the CBS network. For a short synopsis, a group of kids are thrown into a fantasy world where they must search for a way home, armed with magic weapons that an evil tyrant wants.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the game of Dungeons and Dragons, doesn't it?
That's how they all go, right? Group of kids, fantasy world.
Yeah, a bunch
magic
of children
weapons,
and
evil tyrants.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's how most games go. I'm a pro. I'm a seasoned pro at D&D, so I think I'd know.
Uh-huh.
How many games have you played, Chris? How many games of Dungeons and Dragons have you played?
You know what? I'm working on it. I am writing a campaign with the story of the campaign right now because I'm gonna DM my first game.
So Joseph 1, Chris 0.
But mine isn't gonna be all kids it's not gonna be human kids. It'll at least have one freaking halfling or hobbit or something in it. Jeez. Didn't even see a single elf.
I guess, yeah.
Not even an orc.
I mean, there might have been. We only saw 3 episodes out of the 27, so.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
And I'm not sure what Venger was.
He was a tyrant. That's what he was.
That was his species,
That
tyrant.
was his race.
Yeah.
His race was tyrant. And his class was tyrant. So he rolled tyrant.
So who are some of the actors who played in this show? I know one of them.
Oh, yeah, of course. So Hank the Ranger was voiced by Willie Ames, who was known for being Buddy from the show Charles in Charge. He's also in the everyone's favorite Bible Man.
What was it? Bible Man?
Bible Man.
And dragons. Go on.
Bible Man and Dragons, yeah. Eric the Cavalier was voiced by Donnie Most, who is mainly known for playing Ralph the Mouth on Happy Days. He also was the voice of Styles from the Teen Wolf series we did a while back. Sheila the Thief was Katie Lee, who was also the voice of Rolf from Muppet Babies, the voice of Richie Rich from the Richie Rich series, and Alex from Totally Spies. Bobby the Barbarian was voiced by Teddy Field III. That's all I got for him. Presto, the aptly named magician, was voiced by Adam Rich, known for the show 8 is Enough. The voice of Diana, the acrobat, was Tanya Gale Smith. The voice of the Dungeon Master, affectionately just known as Dungeon Master in this show, was Sidney Miller. The voices of both Uni and Tiamat was Frank Welker. I'm guessing that's the one that you were like, yeah, I know who's in this. Frank Welker, if you don't know who he is, voice of Fred from Scooby-Doo, Megatron from Transformers. He's Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget. He's also from various other cartoons, Wonderbug, Jabberjaw, Iceman from Spider-Man and his amazing, buddies that he hangs out with. Slimer from the real Ghostbusters, Nibbler from Futurama. He's got a lot. He's got a lot going on. And then finally, the voice of Venger was Frank Welker's, other half, Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime from Transformers, Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, and Ramrod from Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs. We did that one a while back. Yeah, so that's our cast. We got a couple veterans of the voice acting biz, and then some people I've never heard of, and they disappeared into the ether.
Maybe they're still trapped in the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
Their campaign has yet to end.
Right, it's an ongoing campaign, the campaign of life, if you will.
They never made it out.
Well, technically they didn't, since the show never ended. So for a few tasty marshmallows out of our big bowl of D&D cereal, although many people claim there's a final episode, it was never filmed. The script, Requiem, was finished and it is available online, courtesy of writer Michael Reeves. The DVD box set release of the series includes a performance of the script as a radio play-style production. So that's kind of cool. Even though
that's kind of neat that they did that, yeah.
I mean, it sucks that it got canceled right before the last episode because it's like, come on, we were almost done.
Does it suck that it got canceled?
I liked the show. I mean, I feel that you didn't, but I liked it.
I'll save my talking points.
Maybe I can change your mind a little bit.
I'll have a presentation for you later.
PowerPoint.
Yes.
So the character of Sheila is referred to as Thief only in the show's opening credits. She is never called Thief in any of the episodes, even by Dungeon Master, who usually does call the kids by their class name. So the Dungeon Master is just going to be like, Ranger, Cavalier, Sheila.
That's stupid. Why?
I guess just the association of female with a thief, maybe? I don't know. There's no specific reason stated. But that would be my assumption, that they just don't want to call a little kid a thief or a girl a thief. I don't know.
That's dumb.
Kind of dumb. But why make her a thief at all if that's what you're going to do? And in other countries, I think it was Spain or something, it's not even a thief at all. It's like illusionist and magician, I think. Yeah.
What?
I mean, she's not really stealing anything, so she's not.
They should have just called her a rogue. It would have been fine. They messed up, man.
They did. So in the PC game Baldur's Gate, it features a parody Easter egg in the form of portraits featuring Hank and Bobby in the Adventurer's Mart in, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm going to say it, Athkatla. Both portraits can be clicked and the player can read jokes that imply that they were eaten by Tiamat.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat little Easter egg.
Yeah, I played Baldur's Gate. I wouldn't have known. I'd never seen this show before, so I wouldn't have known that was a thing. But
right. And Hank is the lead character, well, the leader of the group, I guess, who's the ranger. And then Bobby is the little 8-year-old boy who's the barbarian. So,
well, I'm glad to know that they died.
Oh, so I feel that there's a lot of negativity going to be brought to this, but I'll try to balance it out.
No, Joseph, no. Yeah.
Yeah. So the level of violence was controversial for American children's television at the time, and the script of one episode, Dragon's Graveyard, was almost shelved for reasons that we'll go over when we get to that episode.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was more violent than America thought kids could handle at the time.
Well, American audiences, I don't want to say American audiences. American parents, especially at that day and age, they were anti-everything. Which is why we had things like the comics code and all that good stuff, because it's like if one kid steals a candy bar, they're like, oh, the video games, movies, cartoons, and breakfast cereals they consume on a daily basis are so violent. That's what caused it. But maybe it's just, that kid never learned that, it wasn't right to steal. Or just maybe the kid just wanted the challenge. He's like, yeah, I bet I could do this. I'm going to try.
I just think some people are just crappy people. I don't think it has a lot to do. I mean, I'm sure environment has something to do with it, but
they're just destined to suck.
Yeah.
They're destined to
suck. I'm sorry.
Suck.
Anybody who's a crappy person listening to this, I'm sorry, but you suck.
Yeah. Put that candy bar back.
Yeah. Put it back.
Come on. I
Just
see
ask your
you
mom. She'll probably get it for you.
trying to stick it up your sleeve all nonchalant while you're talking to the cashier. That's just rude, young Chris.
That's just bad thiefsmanship.
It's true.
I'm sure you had heard of this show, but had you ever seen it before?
No, I'd never seen it before. I did know of it, and I've seen images of Dungeon Master before, but didn't realize that that's who it was. And that's as much as I knew about the cartoon. I didn't know the plot of the cartoon or any of the characters or anything like that. And so just being familiar with the game Dungeons and Dragons, I kind of thought that this cartoon was going to be something completely different than what it turned out to be.
Yeah, I've played Dungeons and Dragons and all that, but I've never seen this cartoon. I'd heard of it before, along with like the crummy movie that was released in 2000 something. I don't know. I came into this not really knowing what to expect, but I wasn't disappointed. I mean, it was kind of standard 80s affair with a little bit of highlights to it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see how much you can try to you could try to pep me up as we go through this one.
Well,
that's going to be your challenge. Your challenge is to make me somewhat less hateful of this cartoon.
I don't know that I can. I make no promises, but
Okay.
we'll see.
But that's your challenge.
So let's go ahead and jump into the episodes we watched for today's show. The very first episode, highest rated episode, and finally, random chosen episode. Order may vary depending on how these episodes fall chronologically, but of course, we have to start with the very first episode, which is The Night of No Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 1. The pupils seek out and find Merlin, and he'll teach the pupil presto magic if he stays with Merlin. That is so poorly written, but I'm going to stick with it. It's so that's all I'm going to read.
Like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the first episode, but the way that it's not an origin episode per se, because that's what the intro takes care of for you. This intro, it has some music, but it's like very like light background music while it's just narrating what's going on. While Dungeon Master is telling you like, hey, Cavalier, he does call her a thief in the intro, not just Sheila. Cavalier,
Right.
Barbarian, Sheila, Acrobat, like you have to like come with me and I'll give you weapons and you can fight off Vinger, who is the ultimate bad guy in this. And they're like, okay.
Yeah, it's
Like, okay, hold on. They get sucked into the world because they're like, hey, it's a Dungeons and Dragons ride. And they're
at a
an
carnival.
amusement park.
It's like our world, and they're at a carnival, and they see a Dungeons and Dragons ride.
Which is cool. And then they jump on it and get sucked into the world of D&D for some reason.
Yeah,
That's not really
Kind of.
explained, but yeah, that's how it
No.
goes.
they just find themselves going through a portal, and then they're in another place, and some tiny little man that's balding calls them by different names, and they all of a sudden have different clothes on, and they get magic weapons. And then he tells them to do stuff and immediately leaves. So that's the show.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a Dungeon Master in the real game. It's like,
This is true.
Here's the setting. What are you going to do?
Kind of.
I've played it before. I know how it
I
goes.
hate your face.
So basically, Vinger is this like evil wizard who Merlin has. So I guess from what I remember, Merlin had cast a good spell to counteract evil, and it kind of repelled him and the dragons out of that dimension or that universe or something. And so I guess Vinger's still there, but his powers are weakened. So his job is to get those back and try to also free the dragons in the process.
And they meet a baby unicorn named Uni.
That's right. Yeah. And that
Which
also
makes sense, I
happens
guess.
in the intro. You don't
Yeah.
see that actually. So I appreciate that they didn't have like a whole intro episode showing you what happened, because it's like the intro was enough. I get it.
I got it. I'm on the other side though, where I kind of would have liked that a little more, because I feel like it would have made me attached to the characters a little bit more instead of just being thrust into it and like, I don't get any context for why some of the characters are the way they are. Like Eric is just a piece of shit. Like, I mean, even his voice is awful. Like, I'm sorry, Donnie Most, but no.
Well, Eric's
like,
just
I
your typical rich kid, like spoiled rich
I just
kid.
hate that kid. Yeah, I hate him so much. Honestly, like I had a problem with the audio for like the entire show because some of the voice acting was totally fine and on point, and some of it was bad. Like Eric was bad, some of the others weren't great. But the big problem was a lot of the audio did not line up with the characters at all. Like when they were talking and stuff like that, it wasn't like in the least bit believable. Especially the first episode, the audio was always off in certain areas. Like just there's not enough animation for them to say the things that they're saying, which, it makes me wonder if, because, usually the audio is recorded first and then and usually things are animated to the audio. I'm almost wondering with this first episode if something was done backwards, like if it was animated first, because it's really, really off on certain points.
I guess I just don't watch it with a critical eye like that because I wouldn't have said anything about the audio at all. I'm just watching it.
My eyes are 20/20, Joseph, when I have my glasses on.
You're just looking for problems. Because like that's kind of like nitpick stuff. Like,
but to be fair, I go into every cartoon we watch with the critical eye, so I can be like, okay, let's see. I don't just look at the story. I look at the quality of everything too. So someone's got to do it. It's a dirty job, and Mike Rowe isn't here.
You're just like pushing your glasses up. Actually, the audio is a little off right here, and no, I don't do all that. I don't want to do all that. So, what else happened in this episode? Oh, well, so you've got Presto, whose name is actually Albert, but I guess his nickname is Presto. Maybe he does magic. Maybe he's like a magician in the real world. I don't know. But
we don't know. We don't have any context for that.
No, maybe he just likes magic shows. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We almost lose him to this world instantly. Like when they finally meet up with Merlin, because they see his castle in the sky, so they're like, hey, let's just go up there. And then a little rope ladder drops. They're like, perfect. And then they leave Uni down there because she can't climb and no one wants to carry her. They go up there and then he's talking to them for a while. Tiamat comes in too, the giant dragon goddess of she's a 5-headed dragon. All the heads are talking simultaneously, but it's like they all have different powers too. Like there's a fire one, an ice one, and one shoots acid, one shoots like toxic clouds. I don't know, but
one takes acid.
Yeah, one takes acid. One gets totally baked.
That'd be great.
But we find out that Merlin's really afraid of Tiamat, and I guess rightfully so, along with the kids, because Tiamat's kind of like an indestructible dragon goddess, I guess, from the actual D&D lore. So also, I guess something leading into that is the dungeon master, like you said, kind of gives them clues and then steps away and disappears. He kind of pulls like a Batman thing where they turn away and then he's just gone, or he'll just walk behind something and he just disappears. And he gives them little clues, riddles in ways. And in this one, it's like you'll know him by his white hair or something like that. And yeah. And it's like when they first see Merlin, he has white hair, and then he's like, oh no, that's not my hair. That's just like attached to this hat. Like I can't.
Yeah, he's wearing a wig.
I can't do hair. And everybody thinks it's fine. Everybody thinks Merlin, whatever. Like no one's concerned about it. And then they're able to trap Tiamat in this, or I guess drop her out of the castle or something. I don't know exactly, because I thought that Merlin had said that that's like an endless pit or something. But we see her later, so it's not like it wasn't that endless, I guess, or she was able to get out of it.
It was endless light.
Yeah.
It just, I gotta say though, like real quick, I was disappointed that they brought in King Arthur type lore into this. Cause I'm like, I think this is my problem with the show is I'm like, it's Dungeons and Dragons. There's so much stuff they could have done. There's so many things they could have pulled from, but like in the episodes we saw, we didn't really see a whole lot of like cool stuff. We got a dragon and they fought Venger every time. We get one skeleton dude. We don't really get like elves or dwarves or orcs, or I mean, maybe there are some in other episodes, but it just seems everything seems very sparse. And when they start talking about, like, you know, pulling Merlin into it, I'm like, of all the things they could have drawn from, why did they have to go with like another? I don't want to say genre, but like, to me, King Arthur stuff is like a whole nother story. Like I wouldn't throw Merlin into like D&D kind of lore. So I was just like, why did they have to pull from that? Like, they could have done anything and they pulled from another story. And I was like, I
guess it was just to have a more recognizable name in there.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like I think you're right. I think that's exactly what they're going for. But I was just kind of disappointed with that. I was just like, and I honestly wasn't that critical of the show until that point. I mean, there's a few things I was just kind of like, meh. But then we got to that point, and I'm like, come on, man, you guys could have, like, I don't know, been more creative.
You say until that point, and that's like 10 minutes into the first episode. So that's pretty quick.
Yeah. I'm just like, I feel like they could have done like so much more.
Yeah, I wasn't that critical of it until the intro was over, and then.
Yeah, I mean, after that 1 minute, I was just like, man.
Here's one thing I didn't appreciate about this episode. I kind of get why they did it, but I wish they hadn't. So the reveal ends up being that Merlin is actually Venger. The clue was there the whole time, but they just like shove it in your face, like,
and painfully obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Merlin is holding a white rabbit, but it's actually a hare. But the way that they are talking about his white rabbit, or they're talking about the rabbit, and then he's like, no, it's not a rabbit, it's a hare, a white hare. And he says it just like that. And it's like, come on, like you're just giving it away.
Yeah, they still didn't figure it out.
Yeah, no, they still didn't get it after that. And then like, wait a minute, weren't we looking for a white hare? Yeah, like they figure it out after a while, but not until it's like crammed down their throats. And so what happened was, like, Merlin had kind of brought Presto in as his apprentice, and he's basically like, okay, but if you're going to be my apprentice, you have to stay here forever. And he's like, well, okay, I guess that's what I got to do.
He's like, sure.
Yeah, we almost lost him right away. I mean, he agreed to it, and so he was there, like, casting spells and stuff. But the trick was, and this was kind of cool, the trick was Venger kind of rewrote this spell book to trick Presto into casting a spell that he thought was going to send them back home, because throughout the series, like, that's all they want to do, really. Like, as cool as it is to be in like a Dungeons and Dragons world, like, they just want to be home. And
right,
he casts this spell thinking it's that, but it's actually a counter spell to Merlin's old spell. But the only way that spell could be countered is by good magic. And since Presto is pure at heart, or he's a good magician, like, a good magician is the only one who could have countered it. So Venger couldn't have done it himself, but he tricked him into doing it. And so that was the way that they were able to work around that. And so I thought that was kind of a cool little mislead there. I just wish the whole, like, white hair clue hadn't been in there.
So they release all these dragons because of the spell that Presto helped to break. And this is, I don't know. So, like you said, Presto is staying with them. The others left to go, and they went to this village called Helix. The dragons start coming, and they kind of realize that was Venger and not Merlin. So they go back to get Presto, and when they get in there, this is what made me laugh, and I enjoyed. It's like Presto's in there, and he's like upset because he figured out that it was Venger, and well, I think we didn't figure it out. Venger revealed himself then and was just like, you fool, blah, blah, blah. So Presto, like, he like admits all of the things that he messed up to. And he's just like, oh no, I did this and this. We got to stop something. And then Hank adds to the guilt. And he's like, yeah, and the town of Helix is being destroyed. And I was like, oh man, way to pour salt in the wounds.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you're way worse than you thought, even though you already feel super bad.
Just in case you didn't feel bad enough, Presto, you're also destroying an innocent village, just to let you know.
Yeah, also lots of people are being slaughtered horribly. So just thought you should know that little tidbit.
It's funny because, I mean, just a long story short, like, he ends up countering, like, not countering that spell, but recasting Merlin's spell, even as a apprentice magician. So he's not he lacks a lot of confidence. Like throughout that's just the type of person he is. He doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. And so a lot of his spells are miscast. He'll pull something out of his hat that's completely not what he expected. And so it's kind of a big moment for him when he's able to recast Merlin's spell to seal the evil away. And the city treats him as a hero. But I'm thinking like, man, they don't know that he's the one who actually did this to them in the first place.
Yeah. They would have been like, no, he needs to be imprisoned or something, like take his hat away from him. Like,
yeah, they would have come at him
as an idiot
with torches or something had they known.
They would have hated this guy. Do you like how towards the end, like Dungeon Master is like posing all seductively on that horse? Oh, it's so gross. He's like laying on his side with his like head propped up on his elbow and his other hand, like he's like twirling his finger in a circle on the saddle of the horse. I'm like, ew, dude.
What are you doing? What's up, Dungeon Master? Come on.
Like, you kids really saved the day.
Come give Dungeon Master some sugar.
I think you just earned yourself some experience points. Real quick, what is Dungeon Master? Is he like a little gnome dude? Like he's crotch high on all these kids. I'm not sure exactly what he is, but he's gross looking.
I thought he was a gnome at first, but then we find out that he is related to another character who is not a gnome. So I'm like,
Very much not a gnome. Yeah, that's confusing, right?
A little bit.
That kind of made no sense to me.
There's more to it too that I'll get into once we get there. But yeah, so anyway, next episode we watched for today's show was Quest of the Skeleton Warrior, season 1, episode 9. I chose this one because I like the title. Skeleton Warrior sounds cool. And it reminded me of the show Skeleton Warriors. That old show, if you remember that one.
I know of it, but I never saw it.
We'll watch it someday. Maybe. Maybe. So, a cursed knight named Decion tricks the kids into retrieving a circle of power for Venger. The circle can be used for good or evil, and it's up to Decion to make that choice.
Real quick, can we like just briefly give a description of each of the main characters?
Yeah, let's do that.
So like, okay, so we got like Hank, who is the ranger. So he's usually using a bow and arrow. He is, I don't know if he's the oldest. He seems like the oldest, and he's kind of the leader of this whole group. I mean, I guess you could, well, he even calls himself the leader at one point. I don't know who voted him as a leader.
I mean, just out of all the kids, he's probably most capable, though, so I support that decision.
That's true. Then we got Eric, who is the Cavalier, which I think, I mean, he's basically a knight. He's got a shield, he's got a sword.
No, he doesn't have a sword. He just has a shield.
I thought he has a sword. Does he just have a shield?
Yeah, he's just like defense.
Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever... Who just has a shield?
Yeah. Well,
besides Captain America.
I feel like a lot of it's kind of a moral lesson for them too, because it's like now you have to protect everyone instead of being so selfish.
It's dumb. I hate it. So then we got Sheila, who's we won't say she's a thief, but she's the thief. Mm-hmm. Oh, shoot. I said it. She's, I don't know. She doesn't get a whole lot of lines in the episodes we watch. She's kind of the quiet one of the group, I would say.
She is, and her biggest fear is being alone. She has like I think monophobia or something like that. Yeah, she fears being alone.
Then we got Bobby, who is the youngest and is Sheila's younger brother. He's the barbarian, and Bobby's my favorite out of all of them. I mean, this kid he's what I would be, charges into battle. Like, he's always ready for the fight. He's always trying to prove himself. And I actually liked his character. Most of the characters I was kind of iffy on. Him, I really enjoyed. He
definitely seemed like an 8-year-old boy. Even in the first episode where Tiamat approached him, who is this invincible dragon, he's like, I'm going to take you on. He charges at her.
Immediately, yeah. So we got Presto, who's the magician. We kind of talked about him. He's supposed to be like the nerd. He's not very confident in his abilities. Obviously he wears glasses because they made him the nerd. And then we've got Diana, who is the acrobat. And I guess she's supposed to be, I mean, not just because she's the acrobat, but she seems to be the most like sporty out of all the groups or out of all the kids.
Yeah.
She almost seems like she could be sort of like if they didn't have Hank, I feel like Diana would probably be the leader.
Now, it's funny that you say that because she in other episodes where Hank is like gone or something, she does take over as leader. So she is the second in command.
Okay, well then they did a good job then with her personality, because that definitely showed through. And I'll give them that. Like, I mean, you pretty quickly, you get good archetypes for the characters and stuff. Like I said, I just wish we had gotten a little bit more about them instead of having them just thrown into this world. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it might be something that's revealed over the course of the show, because what I know about them, I mainly just read in some trivia stuff or in some background stuff. Like, I know that she, like you were saying about her being kind of sporty, she is a gymnast in real life. It's good to see that actually they had kind of a powerful girl in this, since the other side of that is Sheila, who is kind of the opposite. She's scared a lot and kind of the frightened, like timid girl that you see in a lot of these old cartoons.
Yeah, and I like that it was a black female, because that's like usually the most underrepresented, I don't know what the word is, type of person, I guess. Yeah. Most underrepresented sort of character, I think, in a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So that was cool, and I liked her character a lot too. Like her and Bobby both were my favorites. But I like that she's supposed to be a gymnast in real life. So like it's like they get into the D&D world, and it's like Dungeon Master ran out of ideas. He's like, just keep on doing what you're doing. You're great.
An acrobat. Here's a stick.
And just keep doing that same thing with a stick.
She actually does make kind of good use of it sometimes, which is cool. I'm glad that they didn't just make her a side character. Cool. Yeah. There
really is no side character in this, aside for maybe like, I don't know. I'd say Sheila and Bobby get the least amount of time out of everybody, but I wouldn't really call them side characters.
Well, it's almost like Uni's a side character, because it literally is just like the group pet, but it's more like Bobby's kind of companion. And I mean, that we see that a lot in the next episode, but in this one, but just in general, like Uni's the most side character, because like, she can't talk or anything.
That's for sure.
But yeah, in this episode, you've got Dekion, who we see him meet up with Vinger at the beginning and talking about how they need to get those kids and take their weapons. And he wants to be free. Dekion does, of his curse, his skeleton curse. And so he has to get the circle of power to do that. So his job is to trick the kids into getting the circle of power and getting it to him, so that he's able to lift his curse, as well as basically lead the children into a trap for Vinger.
And so he does that. Well, he kind of does. He shows up where the kids are, because he's like, we got to get the kids in this tower to get this thing, this literal circle of power. And like he shows up, and they immediately just start like attacking him and stuff. And he's just like, I'm not trying to fight, but thanks, I guess. And then finally they kind of figure out he's not fighting back. And then they actually talk to him. And he explains, he's just like, hey, this curse got put on me. I need this circle of power. I can't get to it. You look like impressionable children. Can you please go in that big tower and go fetch a circle? If you see a circle in there, just pick it up and bring it out here for me. That'd be great.
Because part of his curse was that he's not able to enter the tower himself.
Yes. So they say, yeah. But they are told that once they enter, they will have to face all of their fears to reach this circle. And I'm not joking. It's literally a circle. Like, this circle of power is a literal circle. Like, it's not like a orb or a necklace or anything. It's just literally like it's like those rings you toss in a pool and you got to swim down and bring them up. It's that, just but it's a little glowy.
Hoop. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little hoop. So they go in and they all face their fears. Like they one by one, they kind of get separated, except for Eric and Presto end up together, but everyone else really gets separated from each other, and they end up seeing very specific things. Sheila's the first to go. She falls through like a hole in the floor, and she's just like, I don't know. It's like she ends up in some sort of underground place, and she's just by herself, and that's it.
That's it. But that's her biggest fear is being alone. So that really kind of cripples her. And then you've got Bobby. What was his fear? Do you remember?
Bobby. So I was wrong when I said that just Eric and Presto were together. Diana and Bobby were also together. They ended up in what looked like a funhouse mirror kind of thing.
Yes.
And Diana saw herself old and then physically started growing. I mean, old to the point of just disgustingly gross. Like it was kind of creepy. Bobby turned into a baby. So my guess is so Diana's afraid of growing up. Bobby's afraid of being treated like a baby. Mm-hmm. Sheila, like we said, is afraid of being alone. Presto, I guess his fear is losing his glasses because that's what happened. He lost his glasses.
Yeah, and he just has really bad vision, so he's afraid of not being able to see.
Yeah, Eric got turned into like, I don't know, he's got like a donkey looking face, and Presto laughed at him. So I guess that was his fears being laughed at. I also like to, at one point, Eric called Presto a nerd. I'm like, I like how a cartoon in like a character in a cartoon of Dungeons and Dragons called somebody a nerd.
Once he got turned into a donkey guy, like Presto called him a nerd back. So
yeah, exactly. I'm like, Presto, shut up. To me, Presto is like Jerry from Parks and Rec. Like everyone hates him for no real reason.
Oh,
you just want to be like, shut up, Presto. Hank is afraid of stairs disappearing as he runs up them. And he overcomes them by running all the way up.
I think Hank was mainly afraid of failing his friends.
I think that's what they were getting for it. It was just weird, though, because like he was running up these stairs for so long and they just kept disappearing as he was running. And then he got to the room where the circle was. So I'm like, that was his fear because he made it to the circle. But then before he was able to get the circle, like pick it up, he saw a vision of what was happening to all of his friends. So then I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is his fear. But I just thought the stairs thing was weird because I was like, how does that play into it? But I almost kind of think it was just an aside, but I'm not sure.
So, and also something we didn't really mention was that Decion was, I think he was a divine knight or something like that, a knight of divinity. I can't remember what it was, the term they used exactly.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, it's like a powerful knight who rides on top of a griffin. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. A griffin knight, essentially. And they finally get the ring back. They're able to overcome their fears. Hank kind of goes on the PA system, and he's just like, "Hey, everybody! Like, this stuff isn't real. Just overcome your fears." And they're like, "Oh, okay, it's that easy. We'll just overcome our fears." And they do.
Yeah, this dungeon PA system.
Yeah.
And he's lucky that each of them, regardless of where they were, could hear the guy. So,
yeah,
I mean, that worked out.
Like that helps Sheila because she's like, "Oh, I'm not alone. There's a distant voice."
Instantly over it. Oh, okay.
I'm fine. Yeah.
I'm fine now. Thanks.
They overcome their fears. They get out of that, and they have the ring of power, and then they give it to Decion. And that's when...
Sorry, not ring, circle.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Joseph, circle of power.
Well, it's basically a Sonic the Hedgehog ring. So I'm just going to... Yeah, I'll stick to that.
Because if you say ring of power, you're getting into the Lord of the Rings territory, and they got to separate those. So this is the circle.
But, okay, so the circle of power. So
that's right.
They've got that. They've got that. And Decion, they get it back to Decion, and then it's kind of revealed that he was working with Venger. There's a whole battle going down, and it's something that it looks like they're going to lose, or something they do lose, but then Decion has a change of heart. Kind of like we saw, and I'm trying to remember the show, which one it was. I think it was Bionic 6, where there was that dude who was like a bad guy, and then he helped them in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of that same thing. And it's like, that's a little predictable, but it's also really satisfying when that happens because you're like, oh, he does have a heart after all, even for a skeleton guy.
Yeah, that was satisfying. I liked Decion's character, honestly, because I like those characters that they kind of straddle the line of being good and bad, but then they have something redeeming about them in the end. Those are always my favorite characters. So like right away, I kind of expected that to happen, but it made me like Decion more because I was waiting for it to happen. Then when it did, it was a good payoff. And what happens when he saves them is cool because what happened was Venger was straight up killing Hank. Like Hank was almost dead because Hank was literally, he wasn't almost dead. Venger was putting the same curse on Hank that was placed on Dekion. So Hank was turning into a skeleton, and that transformation was honestly kind of creepy. Like, it was pretty gruesome looking. Dekion then kind of jumps in the way and started deflecting the spell, which was kind of just shooting out like a laser beam or something. So luckily you can deflect spells like that. That's good.
Yeah. So after he saves him and everything, that's when he like blows that horn and it calls his griffin back. And it's like, man, that looks awesome. Like I'm glad this guy turned out to be a good dude, because hopefully, I don't know that he does, but hopefully he comes back at some point and like helps them in the future too.
Well, so what happened too was they were told by Dungeon Master that the only way to save, to save Dekion was to break the circle. And, so much for metaphors, because they literally needed to break this circle. Physically break this physical circle. And that's what, in breaking that, Dekion turned back into a human.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. But yeah, it's like, I think someone throws it up and Hank has to shoot it with his light arrow, and that's what breaks it.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because the arrow goes through the circle instead of hitting it, and the circle broke. I'm not sure of the physics of that.
It's like,
okay.
It's like those games where you have to go through like you're in like a flying craft, you have to go through all those loops. And then as you go through a loop, it disappears. So it was kind of the same
like Star Fox
logistic here. Exactly. Star Fox. So I got Star Fox.
This is Star Fox. He's part of this world.
Right.
Merlin, Star Fox, the Ring of Power. My favorite part of this though was like, so he turns into a human and there's literally no reaction from the kids. And then he blows his horn and his griffin comes down and everyone's like, wow. So there's no, wow, he's a human again. They did it. It's, wow, he's going to ride a bird.
Well, they are kids. They're like, yeah, we've seen humans before. Good, nice job.
It just was.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of would have celebrated the fact that they did what they set out to do, but that wasn't the highlight, I guess.
No. They were waiting for that griffin.
Right, that they didn't even know was going to come.
That's awesome. So the last episode we watched for today's show was The Dragon's Graveyard, Season 2, Episode 7. This is the highest rated episode, and I guess I could understand why. It's a pretty cool episode.
It's interesting, yeah.
The group finds a portal home, but Venger destroys it. Frustrated with their situation, they ask Dungeon Master how to be rid of Venger permanently. This one I really liked because they are just done. Like, they are so done being here. And
Hank is, at least. Hank and Bobby.
Hank and Bobby, man.
More Hank.
They are just like, I am sick of being here.
Wait a minute. Where have I heard Hank and Bobby in the same sentence before?
Oh, King of the Hill.
Oh, we're getting real King of the Hill here.
Yeah.
So they get their propane tank.
Yeah, they get their propane and propane accessories. So they are just so angry and just so done with it. They're just like, I know that we just need to like get rid of Venger somehow, but can't we just like kill him? Like, seriously, like, won't that solve everything if we just finish this guy off permanently?
Yeah, they don't say it like in those words. Like, they don't say that they want to kill him, but I mean, that's 100% what Hank is getting at.
Heavily implied, yeah. And
yeah, especially because like someone was like, well, what do you expect us to do once we have him? Because they're going to try to capture him. They're like, what do you expect us to do? And he's like, anything necessary. And I was like, dang.
Yeah.
The others are just kind of like, whoa, take a chill pill.
Like I was saying at the beginning, where they were having some kind of like censorship issues with this episode in particular. They're like, I mean, I know it's not stated specifically, but it's very heavily implied that he wants to kill this guy. So that's not necessarily okay. And so they caught a lot of flack for this episode.
I could just see it now, like some politician somewhere was like, look at this episode in particular. It's about worshiping the devil. It's like, no, that's not even mentioned. They literally are just tired of this guy who's really mean to them.
They're tired of this guy. They're tired of not being home. Like, it was palpable. You could feel how frustrated they were just not being able to go back home after everything they've done for the Dungeon Master. They're just like, come on. Like, can't we just leave? This is stupid. I'm done playing this game. I'm done with your riddles. Just tell me straight how to get home.
It's like when your DM starts getting stale and you're like, can we just wrap up for the day?
Yeah,
man?
it's like, dude, I got stuff to do. Let's just go home. And so the plan from here is that Dungeon Master is like, he's like worried because they're like, man, like you kids are going real dark on me. But he's like, okay, just to stop Venger, you need to power your weapons up. And to do that, since these are dragon formed weapons or something like that, you have to go to the dragon's graveyard, as the title implies. And once you're there, these weapons will the power of these weapons will boost.
Well, what's interesting is he doesn't even tell them that. Like, he tells them where to find Tiamat, and Tiamat is in the dragon graveyard. So they go to Tiamat and ask Tiamat to help, and Tiamat at first is like, no, and then Tiamat's like, well, since you're here, your weapons are going to be powerful. See ya.
Oh, yeah.
Then he leaves.
Well, yeah, because Tiamat, even though she's like this ultimate like entity, she's not really against the kids or anything. They're just in her way sometimes. And she's more against Venger. Like, he's the one that's kind of disrupting the realm. And Tiamat's the only thing that Venger is afraid of.
Yeah, so Tiamat actually, like, after the kids are there and they're powered up, Tiamat goes to Venger, tells Venger, hey, you got your chance if you want to go fight these kids. And so, that happens. But, dude, Venger wasn't holding back. Like, when he got there, he was straight up trying to kill these kids.
Oh, yeah.
And almost killed Uni in the process. Like, Uni was probably going to die.
Yeah, I mean, because he cast a spell on her and it hits her, and then he cast another one like right after just to try to finish her off or at least weaken her. And that's what sends Bobby over the edge. Like, he's already mad because they're stuck there, but this is what makes him go into like rage mode. And he's with Hank, like, let's just finish this guy off. Like, I'm done with this. I gotta kill this dude off in the name of saving Uni in this case, and and his friends, but Uni mainly because she's the one who's really hurt right now, and she's done nothing wrong. There's all these other, like, right when he gets there, he knows, like, you know what, this is a graveyard. I'm just gonna summon everything I can up, like, with my powers. And so he summons all these skeleton warriors with them. I was thinking he was gonna resurrect some like dragon skeletons, but he didn't. He wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected.
Like, maybe he's not powerful enough to do that. I don't know, but he at least got some of the skeletons to come help him, and they are using some other discarded weapons that are there as well, which are also more powerful, being in the dragon's graveyard, like that lance, the like trident. Yeah. I was thinking, like, why doesn't
it's like a lightning lance or something.
Why doesn't Eric just keep that too? Because at one point he had that and his shield.
He's dumb.
And it's like, hey, that's perfect. What a good combo. And then he just like throws it away after they're done.
Do you understand how stupid Eric is? So when they first get to that graveyard, it's full of nothing but dragon skeletons, right?
Yeah.
And Eric's like, because they're looking for Tiamat, and Eric's like, well, how do we know which one is her? And I'm like, maybe the one that's not dead, Eric. You moron. But one thing that I liked here is, so those skeleton dudes get resurrected. Diana immediately starts talking, and then immediately loses her staff. I mean, literally just finishing her sentence. And like one of the dudes like whips a whip and like snatches her staff out of her hands.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, well, there goes that.
They're all in like really bad spots where they're like, man, like these skeletons are beating us. But then they start to come back and they're able to like overcome the skeletons. They're able to just long story short here too, they're able to get Venger to where he is trapped against this rock. What were they using to bind his hands? Was it the light arrows also, or what was it?
I don't remember what it was. Well, I guess it was the light arrows because he fell somewhere, and then Hank shot something at both his arms, and it like basically cuffed him to this rock. And then Bobby slammed his club down, and all of the ground surrounding where he was trapped fell away. So he's just basically on this kind of island in the middle of nowhere. There's like nowhere for him to go. They've got him dead to rights.
Oh, yeah.
And Hank has an arrow drawn and aiming right at his face.
And this is the big moment where it's like they can be done with it. They can potentially go home and just be rid of this guy altogether. And of course, like Hank, I mean, it doesn't, you don't, I mean, to their credit, it doesn't seem like Hank is going to pull back because he's very committed to this. And then he luckily does as the leader and all, and as just a good person, and he doesn't finish him off. And then that's when we get the reveal also that Dungeon Master, who kind of comes and picks Vinger up after he falls, he calls him son. So Dungeon Master is Vinger's father. There's also another,
which makes zero
There's
sense.
also another character in this. I can't remember what her name was, but that is Dungeon Master's daughter, who was also evil, but she was redeemed and turned to the side of good. And in the last episode that was never aired, supposedly the idea of the script was that Vinger was going to be redeemed also. He was going to, and at the very, very, very end of everything, it's like now the kids have a choice. They can go home or they can help defend the realm from future evil. And that's kind of where it cuts off in the script.
Basically, like defend the realm from Dungeon Master's family reunion, since all of his freaking family members are evil, apparently, and causing all kinds of ruckus.
I think it's stated or implied somewhere in or around the last episode that Dungeon Master could have teleported them out the entire time. Like he had the power to do that. But
what a jerk.
Yeah, so he's kind of like a mastermind, not to say he's evil, but he's just like almost using these kids to...
He's Professor X in them. If you read those comics very closely, like he's a horrible man.
He's just like, my family sucks. I can't do it myself, so I need your help, kids.
Or I just don't feel like it because it'd be awkward.
Yeah.
Like Christmas would be real strange if I stopped him myself. So I'm just going to steal these children and have them do it. Sounds like a good time. I don't like that they let Vinger go because, I mean, it's like the Batman syndrome. It's like, I don't know, if you don't put an end to these villains, they're just going to keep coming back. And then you can't be surprised if they come back because it's on you. And, you know, even though it's like, what is a true hero would do? Like a true hero, of course, would not kill or something, but man, they should have imprisoned him or done something because he's just gonna come back, and you know he does. So
yeah, it's one of those things, and they might have even said it. Just another one of those like, we don't want to stoop to his level.
Yeah, they did, but it's kind of, and I get it, and it's a good for children. It's a good moral to go with. For me though, I'm just like, man, he's just gonna keep causing the same problems he's always caused. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot.
Well, at this point, the intended audience for this aren't jaded like us, so I think that they're supposed to take a more positive message from it.
All right.
Well, Chris, looks like it's about time we bring out those D20 to help our inner kids roll up with a couple new level 1 cartoon reviewers so they can make up for their low strength, dexterity, constitution, and wisdom by loading all their points into cartoon intelligence to tell us what they thought of Dungeons and Dragons.
I thought this show would have heroes and big battles and real cool magic and monsters. And we got some of that, I guess. But why did it have to be a bunch of whiny kids? And the Dungeon Master sounds like he'd be cool, but he's as small as me. Lame. I hope I roll a critical miss on my history check so I can forget this show, because I gave it 2 circles of cereal out of 5.
I came in expecting this cartoon to be pretty corny, and I was right, but I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect, but the fact that the characters felt so much more authentic and emotionally relatable really helped keep me engaged. Even Eric, the rich snobby kid, wasn't so one-dimensional like his archetype would have been in other 80s cartoons. In addition to that, the action was pretty solid, and the show itself was not nearly as reserved when it came to violence, inferred or otherwise. Overall, I'd give Dungeons & Dragons 4 big bowls of Dungeon Master Munch cereal out of 5, and definitely think it's worth checking out. In closing, I'm not sure what kind of perfect D&D session these creators were playing, but in my games, our thief would almost always try and steal gear from the group. If I were any of these players, I'd 100% be keeping an eye on her. That's right, I'm watching you, Sheila.
You said thief. You're not supposed to say thief.
Oh, that's
Joseph.
right. That's right. So I guess
You can't.
the other Sheilas in our game.
You better watch those Sheilas because
Keep an eye on those Sheilas.
they might Sheila your belongings.
I'm serious though. Like I've played games where our thief would literally try and steal stuff out of our pockets when we weren't paying attention.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's so we'd be missing gold, and if we didn't roll like the right kind of check, we would never know what happened to it. So it's like, come on. But I mean, out of character, you know this dude's taking your stuff, but in character, you can't know. So it's a whole thing.
So what is your favorite race or role to play in Dungeons and Dragons?
Usually, I like playing warrior types, but not like super armored warriors or paladin stuff like that. Like I just want to play
like a fighter,
dude. Yeah, I like doing that usually.
Okay.
What about you? Like I know you haven't played like a serious game, but what do you think you would enjoy?
Well, I mean, the campaign that we're working on, like I said, I'm going to be DMing, but it's going to be I'm homebrewing it. So I made it's not going to be set in a shared world with a lot of the other stuff, because that would just makes it easier on me. But I am going to NPC a few characters that are going to tag along every once in a while. Like they'll come in and out. My favorite one that I came up with, and the one that I would probably interact with them the most, like he'll probably come in multiple times, is a half-orc barbarian. Because I'm like you, I like the big brawler kind of dudes, and I just like the idea of this guy. He's got a giant great axe called Oathbreaker. He's going to be awesome. So I'm excited for that.
Nice. Yeah, I just prefer melee over ranged combat in almost everything.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
I enjoy the challenge, and I enjoy being right up there in combat. Even though I'm a little bit more at risk, it's just more of a thrill to me.
Oh yeah, and that's the same reason. Like anytime I play a video game, I always go for that same kind of archetype. Like every single time when Diablo 2 came out, when Diablo 3 came out, I always go barbarian first, because you gotta go for that first and get in the fray and see what it's all about. Then you can play some of the other characters. Yeah,
what always ends up happening is I see some cool like ranger gear or like mage gear while I'm using my barbarian, and I'm like, oh man, like.
Then you save it, yeah.
Save it, make a new character, and then play that for a little bit, then be like, oh, I don't know, I miss my barbarian. Go back to him.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think it's just like, I don't enjoy being just a pure mage, because I don't like hanging back so much. So if I'm going to be anything with magic, I like being like a battle mage, where I can be up there with the weapon, but also have a spell in my other hand. If we're talking along the lines of like Skyrim and stuff like that.
Well, speaking of Skyrim, do you have any final thoughts on this show?
Speaking of Skyrim, yeah. Nice segue. Yeah, but for me, like this show, like I came into it thinking it was going to be, I was thinking I was going to give it a 2 before I saw anything, because I'm like, man, this is going to be like really like cheesy, and there's going to be so many things I don't like about it. But I ended up like looking past a lot of that, and I was able to appreciate the authenticity of the kids. Like they felt real to me, more so than a lot of characters of 80s cartoons did, because a lot of times like they'll be so like one extreme or the other, but these kids had like mixed emotions on things, and they weren't perfect, and they doubted themselves a lot, which is very much a kid thing to do. And these are only like 15, 14 or younger year old kids. So it kind of fit perfectly with what I was thinking. If I had written these kids myself, like it wouldn't have been exactly like this, but this is what I kind of would picture them having, their doubts and having like to motivate each other. And also even when they're down, or even when they feel that all hope is lost, like they are sticking it out for their friends. And it was so cool to me when I looked at it through that lens, and not of a cheesy 80s cartoon lens that I was thinking it was going to be when I first jumped in.
Yeah. I mean, I was just kind of disappointed with it. I mean, like I said, out of all the cool things they could have done with the theme of D&D, they could have some real sweet fantasy themes going on. I don't know. I mean, I see the metaphor they're going for by having kids from our world venture into this land being the idea of, us sitting down to play the game. But I just couldn't get into it, man. It wasn't very exciting for me. We did get the different classes, but like in all honesty, I feel like the different situations like Mighty Max got into felt more D&D than some of these episodes. So, it's one that, if I watched more, maybe there would be, I would change my mind a little bit about it, but it just didn't do it for me. So I'll be sticking to watching Critical Role or reading some of the comics when it comes to D&D media. So I don't know. Like Image actually has quite a few D&D comics that are pretty good that I really enjoy. So if anyone hasn't checked those out, go check those out because they're good.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from. I don't think that everybody's going to like it a lot, and I don't think everybody's going to hate it. I think it's going to be kind of an in-between. So, and I can understand both sides of that. So it's not like a super like, I'm offended that you don't like this or whatever. It's like, I get it. I totally get it.
Also, if you can handle adult content, read Rat Queens because if you like D&D, you'll like Rat Queens. It's great.
If you want a little bit less adult content and you want to read a comic that's similar to that, read Skull Kickers. That's also a really cool one. Yep.
I'm reading Scales and Scoundrels right now.
I was curious about that
also
one.
Also kind of D&D.
How is it?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's not your well, I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay,
It's interesting though, but it's worth checking out.
But you're still reading it, like you're continuing on with it.
Yeah, there's only 6 issues out right now. I just read the 5th. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, I like it.
We'll check it out. Well, listeners, it looks like our milk supply is now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And next week, we'll be watching
Animaniacs, suggested via Instagram by Harley Sally Gurales.
Harley Sally Gurales.
Name.
I remember that person.
A name.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was with 16 upvotes on the Cartoon Boom ranking poll. Puts the power of what we review into your hands unless we veto it, because that would be kind of funny for you to put in all that work for nothing. And keep those suggestions coming in. Since we have this ranking poll now, we can just throw whatever on there and it's fine.
It does not surprise me that Animaniacs jumped so high so quickly then.
Yeah, it just got added not that long ago too, like a few weeks ago. So yeah, it went up real quick.
Honestly, I'm surprised we hadn't reviewed it yet, so it's about time.
Yeah, way to go, Joseph.
It's all my fault. Well, once again, I'm Joseph, and I have failed you.
And I'm Chris, and I'm going to re-roll after this episode.
So you may not be Chris when you get back.
I might not be Chris next week.
But we'll see you next Saturday.
Presented by Nerdsloth.
A place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.